Once, the sky brushed the tops of trees, and food fell like rain into open hands. But people were greedy, and the sky, it quietly stepped away. Welcome to Fireside Fables and Folklore, your hearthside home for cozy tales wrapped in the hush of legend and time. Tonight's story is one whispered across generations in West Africa, a tale that begins in a world where the sky hung low, close enough to touch, and gave freely to all who asked. But, as you'll soon hear, not every gift stays forever. So fluff your pillow, wrap yourself in a soft blanket, and let your breath slow. Inhale and exhale. You're safe here, and the story is about to begin. At first, the people treated the sky with care. They didn't take more than they needed. When they reached up and pinched off a piece of sky fluff, soft as steamed rice and glowing with a gentle warmth, they always said, "Thank you." It was a quiet ritual, but it mattered. The children called it cloud bread. It stretched like dough, sweet as yam porridge, and melted in their mouths. Old men liked it toasted over a fire. Young girls learned to braid strips of it with sun threads to make soft, glowing necklaces. The sky seemed to enjoy this. It would shimmer more brightly when it was spoken to kindly or shaped with care. Each morning, the villagers woke to a sky resting low enough to brush with their fingers. It changed colors with the moods of the day. Amber in the morning, pale gold in the afternoon, and deep indigo as evening fell. People lived simply. They sang, they told stories, they napped beneath the breathing canopy of blue. There was no hunger, no worry, and so, slowly, without anyone meaning to, there was also no reverence. It happened in small ways first. One child took more than she could eat, just a little too much. She didn't mean any harm, but when her belly was full and the cloud bread still sat in her hand, she dropped it onto the ground. "It's just sky," she said, wiping her fingers. Then came the others. A boy who chewed absent-mindedly, tearing long strips from the air and spitting out pieces he didn't like. A woman who laughed as she shaped sky into pots and bowls, not for use, but to show off. She threw them away when they cracked, and still the sky gave. Perhaps it waited, perhaps it hoped, but the people were changing. They began to forget that the sky was alive. They pulled without asking. They tore without thinking. They laughed when they fed sky scraps to the goats, who sneezed it back out and rolled in it like hay. Soon, they were no longer just eating the sky. They were wasting it. And no one said thank you anymore. It happened slowly, the way rot finds fruit. At first it was small, children grabbing more than they could carry, adults slicing sky into ribbons for idle crafts. No one thought it was wrong. After all, the sky was always there, always full, always giving. Why not take a little more? People began to twist sky into ropes to tether their goats, even though vines worked just as well. Others built ornaments from sky strands, tossing away what didn't look perfect. Hunters smeared sky paste on their faces for decoration and left the scraps to dry and flake off like fallen leaves. Elders noticed, but most said nothing. A few tried.
"Take only what you need," warned Mambo, a grey-bearded potter whose hands always smelled of earth. "The sky watches." But others laughed. "The sky doesn't mind," they said. "It's not like it can run away." One man, a merchant named Olin, became famous for crafting sky into shoes. Soft, glowing sandals that never wore out. People walked on the sky now. They thought it clever. They thought it was progress. But something was changing. The sky no longer shimmered with the same golden light. At dawn, it rose just a little higher. Not enough to matter, but enough for the birds to notice. And some people, the quiet ones, began to feel the shift in their bones. One morning, a boy reached up for breakfast and had to jump. That night, the stars blinked dimmer than usual. Still, no one stopped. Instead, they built taller stools. Every year, when the rains had ended and the ground grew firm, the villagers held a celebration. It was a time to laugh, to dance, to share tales in sweet songs under the open sky. But this year, it was different. This time, they called it the Sky Festival. They said it was in honor of the sky's generosity. But it became a showcase of what could be made from the sky, not for it. The village square overflowed with sky sculptures, towers twisted from cloud ribbons, sky dough baked into grand shapes no one intended to eat. The children bounced sky puffs like balls, throwing them back and forth until they burst and evaporated. Some even molded the sky into little puppets and crushed them underfoot in mock battles, laughing as if it were just mud. And all around, the smell of singed sky lingered. People were roasting it over open fires to make it crunchier, puffier, flashier. Most of it was tossed away, flattened into the dust, trampled and forgotten before the sun set. Even the elders, who once spoke gently to the sky, joined in, not because they believed it was right, but because they didn't want to be left behind. A woman crafted a gown entirely from sky fibers. It shimmered with the colors of twilight, and people gasped at how it fluttered. But as she walked, trails of the delicate fabric tore off, drifting into gutters and caught on thorns. "More! Make me another!"
she shouted to the weavers. They reached higher and higher, pulling down more sky to make new dresses, decorations, and dishes. No one noticed that the sky no longer responded with warmth. By nightfall, the sky was dull. It no longer hummed above them, no longer rippled with joy. It just hung there, silent, unmoving, and flat. That was when the wind changed. A gust moved through the village, slow and cold, brushing against the people's faces like the fingers of something old and disappointed. The lanterns flickered. The drums fell silent for a heartbeat. The children paused mid-play. And then came the sound, a low creaking, like a door slowly closing somewhere far away. The sky shifted so subtly that only a few noticed. A slight lift, just a hand's breadth higher than before. The breeze that followed smelled faintly of dust and distance. Some looked up and felt uneasy. Others returned to their games. By morning, the sky was still a little higher and quieter.
Not everyone had forgotten. Nia, the oldest of the village elders, lived in a quiet hut near the edge of the forest. Her back was bent, her eyes milk-clouded with age, but her mind was sharp as ever. She did not attend the Sky Festival. Instead, she sat beneath a tamarind tree, listening to the sky's silence. When the younger ones came to visit, those still curious, still willing to hear, she would speak softly, her voice woven with wind. The sky was once a mother, she would say. She fed us, shaded us, listened to our songs. But a mother's arms cannot always stay open when her children forget their manners. The children laughed, unsure whether to take her seriously. "She's just old," said one boy, rolling his eyes. "The sky will never leave. It can't." But Naya's face held no laughter. All living things can leave, even those you think are too big, too near, too kind. Later that week, she stood in the village square, calling for silence. Many came, though few expected much. Naya had not spoken in public in years. She stood without aid, thin as a reed, but tall with purpose. "The sky is rising," she said plainly, "and it is our doing." A few scoffed, others murmured nervously, but most just stood still, unwilling to meet her eyes. "You waste what was once sacred. You twist it for show, trample it for play, pull it without thanks. And now you wonder why your fingers can no longer reach what once fed your mouth." "Are we supposed to go hungry?" someone called out. "Are we not to enjoy what is given?" asked another. Nia's voice softened. "Joy is not the enemy.
But joy without respect becomes greed, and greed makes even the sky grow tired. She looked up, though her eyes could no longer see, and raised a hand that trembled not with age, but truth. The sky is not a well that never runs dry. It is a friend, and we have become poor ones. There was silence. A few bowed their heads, but most simply walked away, muttering, "She's scaring the children. What does an old woman know of skycraft and celebration? Let her talk. The sky will still be here tomorrow." They left her standing there, under the high, quiet blue. Only one child, a girl named Amari, lingered by Nia's side. She held the elder's hand without saying a word, and far above them, unnoticed by most, a line of small clouds pulled slowly back, like hands retreating from a reaching touch. At first, it was only the tallest man who noticed. Kwame, the basket weaver, rose before dawn each day to gather dew from the air. He had a knack for it, cupping his palms and catching the thick mist that once swam just above his head. But on this morning, his hands came back dry. He stood on tiptoe. He jumped. Nothing. He frowned and went to fetch his tallest stool. Still nothing. "I must be shrinking," he muttered. But he wasn't. The sky had risen again. And it didn't stop. Each day that followed, the sky climbed a little higher, like a tide moving up the shore in reverse. What was once within reach now brushed the tops of trees, then only the tallest trees, then beyond even that. Cloud-bread disappeared first. No longer could the people break off soft chunks of sky for breakfast. The children tried jumping, the elders waved long sticks. Nothing worked. The sky had risen just far enough to remain untouched. Then came the mist water. No longer did cups fill with sweet droplets when raised skyward. The air was drier now, thinner, and the sky no longer rippled with color when spoken to. It gave no reply. Some said it was just a season, a passing change, but the elders knew better. Nia stopped speaking in riddles. Her voice grew sharper. "It is not a season, it is a leaving." Still, many didn't want to believe. They built tall poles, ladders of bound bamboo lashed together, wobbling towers to reach the sky once more. But no matter how high they built, the sky was higher still. People began to panic. "Bring the sky back down," they shouted. They threw offerings upward, fruits, jewelry, cloth. All fell back to the earth. One man even climbed the tallest tree with a drum, beating it toward the sky like a call. Nothing answered. One morning, a child awoke crying, not because she was hungry, but because her dreams had been silent. "The sky didn't sing to me," she sobbed. And in that moment, the villagers realized something terrible. They had grown used to the sky's closeness, its hum, its warmth, its quiet companionship. And now it was truly gone. What begins as confusion soon turns into hunger. Without the sky's soft bread or dew drink, the people feel a deep ache, one they have never known before. Bellies rumble, tongues dry, children cry without understanding why. There are no farms, no wells. For so long the world had given freely, and no one thought to learn the old ways. "We'll wait," said some. "The sky will return." But the sky did not. So they started reaching in other ways. First came the ladders, taller, sturdier ones. Teams of men worked day and night, cutting down trees to build new scaffolds that scraped the clouds. But as the last rungs were placed, they realized the awful truth.
The sky had risen even farther. What had once seemed just out of reach was now a blue vastness, cool and uncaring. Then came the arguments. "You took too much." "No, you started wasting it." "We told you to stop building those silly sky shoes." Neighbors accused neighbors. Families turned inward. The village, once filled with singing and laughter, now echoed with blame. A few tried to return to the old ways. They dug at the soil, scattered seeds, though none had ever been taught how to grow. Most of what they planted withered. Their hands were clumsy, their hearts impatient. And as the hunger grew sharper, so did their tempers. Fights broke out over scraps, over memories, over who was to blame.
One man, Loon, the merchant who once made sandals from sky stuff, tried to melt down his last pair into something edible. He boiled them in a pot, desperate. The smell turned foul. He wept anyway. Naya watched it all. Her eyes, dim but steady, remained on the horizon where the sky had once come to kiss the earth. "You must learn to ask differently," she murmured to no one in particular. But no one listened. Even the children had grown quiet. No more cloud-bred games, no more sky puppets. They sat beneath trees, watching the tall poles sway uselessly in the wind. Except one child, Amari. She still visited Naya, still asked questions, still listened. "Is the sky angry?" she asked one evening. Naya shook her head. "No, child, the sky is not angry, just tired." Amari looked up, her brow furrowed. "Can we call it back?" The elder did not answer, not with words. Instead,
she handed the girl a spindle of cloud fiber, the last she had saved, woven long ago with care and gratitude. "Try," she whispered, "but not with noise, not with reaching hands, with thanks." Amari held the ribbon gently, and in the coming days, as the village slipped deeper into hunger and harshness, she began to prepare her offering. The village had nearly forgotten how to be quiet. Even now, in hunger and unrest, voices filled the air, angry, desperate, loud. But Amari had learned from Nia that not all things respond to shouting. So one morning, before the sun had fully risen, she slipped away from the village with only a satchel and the last ribbon of sky fiber. It shimmered faintly, dimmer than it once had been, but still soft, still alive. She walked past the dried wells, the broken ladders, the hollow-eyed villagers who no longer looked up. She walked to the edge of the forest where the tallest tree grew, a fig tree older than memory, whose crown still reached toward the heavens like a question without an answer. There she began to climb. The bark scraped her palms. Leaves rustled like whispers. Branch by branch she rose, not chasing the sky, but seeking to get close enough to be heard. It was not easy. She slipped. Once she almost fell, but she kept going. When she reached the highest point she dared, she sat quietly on a thick branch, her feet dangling above the forest canopy. The village looked small from there. The world looked wide. And the sky was so far. But Amari did not call out. She did not beg. She did not ask. Instead, she unrolled the ribbon and began to weave. Piece by piece, she folded the ribbon around small twigs, shaped it into a simple ornament, nothing grand, just a loop, a spiral, a soft shimmer that caught the morning light. As she worked, she sang, not loud, but soft, like a lullaby only the sky could hear. "Thank you," she sang, "for the mornings you fed us, for the shade that cooled our skin, for the hush that wrapped us when we wept." Each line was a memory, each knot a moment of thanks. She tied the finished ribbon to a branch and let it sway gently in the breeze. She sat and waited. The sky did not answer, not with a roar, not with light or wind, but far above, a single cloud paused in its path, just for a breath, just for her, and then it kept drifting. Amari didn't cry. She didn't call after it. She simply smiled because the pause was enough. It meant the sky had seen her. She climbed down slowly, carefully, and as she walked back into the village, ribbonless and tired, something in the air had changed. Not lower, not louder, but gentler, The sky did not come back. Not the way it had been. It stayed high and distant, a pale dome stretched beyond touch, beyond speech. No more soft mist to drink, no more cloud bread to tear and share, no shimmer when stories were sung, only stillness. But the silence was not empty, it was full of meaning. The people didn't notice it all at once. Some still stared up with hands outstretched, still waiting. Others yelled curses at the clouds or blamed their neighbors. But slowly, one by one, they stopped expecting and started remembering. They remembered the taste of sky in their mouths, the way it melted like sunlight and soothed like a mother's hum. They remembered the sound of children's laughter echoing under the sky's warm breath. They remembered how easy life had been. But more than that, they began to remember how wasteful they had become. The village square, once bright with festival debris, now looked like a graveyard of melted gifts. Sky sandals crumbled into dust, sculptures wilted, toys made of cloud had long since vanished. All that was left was the hunger and the shame. So the people began to change. They stopped trying to take from the sky and started trying to live with the earth. It was not easy. Their hands were soft, their backs unused to bending. They knew little of planting, of soil, of patience. But they learned. From stories, from elders, from the quiet wisdom of Naya, who still sat beneath her tamarind tree, nodding as if this struggle was the beginning of something true. And they listened to Amari, the girl who had climbed the tree, the girl who had offered a thank you, not a demand. She never claimed to have brought the sky back. She simply told her story and showed the branch where her ribbon had danced, now empty. But when she spoke, the people listened, because she had seen the sky pause, and that pause had become sacred. It was a slow beginning. The people had spent generations relying on the sky's gifts. Now, with the sky far above and silent, they had to look downward, to the earth, to their hands, to one another. And so they began. First came the digging. They turned over dry soil with sticks and stones, unsure of what they were even looking for. Their hands blistered, their backs ached. Many gave up after a day or two, but not all. Some remembered old stories, half forgotten, of seeds and seasons, of things that grew from the ground rather than falling from the sky. Naya remembered. She gathered the youngest, sat them in a circle, and taught them how to feel the weight of a seed in the palm, how to press it gently into the soil, how to wait. The sky gave us gifts without asking,
she told them. But the earth gives slowly, only when we care for it. Amari listened closely. She had never seen something grow from dirt before. It felt like a different kind of magic. Slower, quieter, more fragile. The first crop failed. They had watered too much or too little. They had planted during the wrong moon. Some had tried to speed the process, digging up their seeds each morning to see if they'd sprouted. But Nia only smiled. Failure is the first harvest, she said. The second crop fared better. Green shoots poked through the earth like shy children peeking out from under a blanket. People gathered around, watching as if witnessing a miracle. They sang not to the sky this time, but to the sprouts, to the soil, to the worms, to the roots beneath their feet. Something was changing. The people began to share again. Tools, food, stories, mistakes. Hunger no longer made them cruel. It made them kind. They built clay pots to carry water, learned to catch rain when it came, and discovered the satisfaction of sweat on their skin. The children played with pebbles and leaves now. They stopped trying to bounce on vanished cloud puffs. They stopped looking up for their joy. Instead, they listened to the ground. They learned when it was thirsty, when it was tired, when it was ready. And in that learning, something strange happened. They no longer missed the sky the same way. They still honored it, still told stories of how it once fed them. But now, when they looked up, they did so with respect, not longing. Because they understood. The sky had not abandoned them. It had taught them. The easy life had been a gift. The hard life was a teacher. And in between the two, they had grown. Not just crops, but character. Years passed. The village blossomed anew, not under the low sky's gift, but through their own hands, hearts, and hopes. Amari grew into a wise woman, her eyes bright with the memory of that long-ago morning when she climbed the fig tree and offered her ribbon. She became the village storyteller, gathering children around the fire each night. The crackling flames painted shadows on their eager faces as she spoke softly. Once, the sky was close enough to touch, and it gave us everything we needed. But we forgot to be careful, to be thankful. We wasted what was precious, and the sky stepped back, farther than we could reach. The children leaned in, wide-eyed. But even when the sky was gone, we learned to grow our own food, to share, to work hard and be kind. We learned that gifts aren't just given, they're cared for. Amari smiled, her voice gentle as a breeze. That is why the sky is so far away now. Not because it is angry, but because it needed to teach us to stand on our own feet. She looked up, where the deep blue stretched endlessly,
sparkling with stars. So every time you see the sky, remember to be grateful. Take only what you need and give thanks, not just to the sky, but to the earth, to each other, and to yourself. The fire flickered low. The children yawned and smiled, safe in the warmth of story and lesson. And in the night sky above, the stars twinkled quietly, watching, waiting, hopeful. And so, dear listener, that's the tale of why the sky is so far away. A story of gifts once taken for granted, of lessons learned the hard way, and of a girl who reminded us all how powerful a simple thank you can be. If this story stirred something in your heart or brought a quiet smile to your night, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment below. We'd love to hear what part of the tale stayed with you. And don't keep this story to yourself. Share it with family, friends, and anyone who still looks up at the sky and wonders. Thank you for joining us by the fireside. Until next time, breathe deep, sleep well, and remember, the world is full of stories if only we listen. Good night.